negative number that may have a decimal point. So that's float colon variable name. Depending on your version of NetBrain, the interface may, and the system may require you to define it as a double instead of a float. That is actually, I'm not sure if it's appropriate to call it a bug. It was a mistake on the part of somebody in the dev team who, I guess didn't know much about variable types, which, why would you unless you've worked with them? But just for everyone's edification, these are all generic terms. A double is a variable that has a number, a decimal point, and then 2 digits after the decimal point. No more, no less, regardless of the value. So double variables are typically used for currency and things like that. Whereas floats, as the name implies, how many digits it has after the decimal point, if any, depends on the actual value. So float was always what was intended. So use that if it's available. It was one specific version. I forget which one that had double. And then there is technically a Boolean variable type. So that's bool colon the variable name, and that would literally read either true or false. Now, there's very few outputs, at least in my humble experience, that express themselves literally as true or false. So this is of somewhat limited utility, but it does exist. So there's that. Now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be pulling from config file, CLI, or it's not on this diagram because it's newer capability, but also we could pull from SNMP or even from API. And then we need to pull a sample text to basically test what we're defining. We define our no-code grammar.
Okay, hello everybody.
How we,
good morning.
For marketing purposes, explain this, the expressions and so forth that we've been talking about. We call it no-code because it really, compared to a proper programming language like Python or something, it's dead simple. So it's basically designed for people like me who have no talent for software or scripting or anything like that. But for those of you who do, it'll be that much simpler, and all of the standard Python tools are available to you if you choose to use them. Now, in terms of actually parsing, there's 5 methods, and they fall into 2 different categories. So first of all, single variable parsing is
okay, hello everybody.
Each variable is only going to occur once per output. And there's 2 different methods here. There's text parsing, which means to take a chunk out of the output. And this is actually has 2 purposes. One is you can actually nest other parsers within this. And so you can isolate a section of text and then just parse within that specific section.
Okay, hello
the other
everybody.
is to take a chunk, typically out of a config file, but it can be other stuff as well, and then put it on the map as a sticky note as part of a data view. So you can take a particular section of a config file, put it on the map as a sticky note, and then users can refer to that config as needed. That's a pretty common use case. And then there's just a variable type parsing, or keyword type parsing as I think of it, which is just your most basic type of parsing where, it's only going to look for one value for this per output. Now, table variables may occur more than once per output. So this is, in mechanical terms, let's just say that single variable parsing is what we use for device level variables, whereas if we have interface level variables, module level variables, neighbor level variables, anything like that, that's table parsing, okay? Or table variable parsing. And for the specific methods, there's paragraph, which is what we use when we might have repeating patterns of data, such as show interface, as we're going to use as an example here. Table parsing, which is what we use when there's a literal CLI formatted table, and collector parsing, which is what we use for log type output. So in terms of what I'm actually going to teach you today, I'm going to teach you variable parsing, I'm going to teach you paragraph parsing, and I'm going to teach you table parsing. We haven't been able to gin up a proper example for collector parsing just yet. So that's why that's excluded here. Everything about it is in the help file and so forth. And text parsing is honestly not used all that much, and it's so dead simple. Basically, you can figure that out once you've got the other stuff. So again, here are the 5 types of parsing. These slides, a lot of these slides are for your reference. For example, all of these detailed slides on the different methods. The slide deck is, of course, intended to be downloaded and used as reference material for you guys, which is why all this is here. So I should mention this is relatively new. Parser discovery. Most of the time when we're asked to choose what parser file to use, we'll be using this parser discovery, which allows us to string search through syntax within the parser files. The name of the parser file itself is assigned, things like that to help us find what we want. And then we can actually test it against stored data or live data on selected sample devices. So basically we can pull data and compare and try to feed it into the parser file right here in the discovery and basically see if it works the way we think it will. So this is a fantastic little tool to be able to not only find the right parser, but to make sure it actually works. And as we said before, the whole point of, actually, no, I don't know if I ever said this explicitly, the whole point of parser files is that we build it once and use it over and over and over and over again. Okay. One point that I should make is, while we're on this slide, I don't know if any of you guys and gals here are from managed service providers, but if you are, to be very brief, there's 3 levels of administration in NetBrain. There's system level, tenant level, and domain level. Now, the whole point of tenant level is for our MSP users, each separate client should be its own tenant. And that's primarily for data segregation. Basically, the NetBrain database on a mechanical level exists at the tenant level. Now, these parser files are saved in NetBrain as part of the NetBrain database, along with all the other files. So what this means is if you're an MSP and you have multiple clients and they're separated into different tenants as they should be, when you build a parser file in one tenant, it's not going to automatically show up in the others. This is a bit of an annoyance, but it is it's something you can work around. So what you're going to have to do in that case is you're going to have to export the parser files to .vpar is the name of the format, basically just a Windows or Linux or file. And then you're going to have to maintain a repository for like in a shared drive or something, and then import it into each individual tenant. So it's a little bit of an annoyance if you're an MSP, but not the end of the world. All right, so before we go on, any questions about anything I've discussed up to this point, folks?
Nope.
All right. So this is just a brief overview of some of the relationships between the different types of automation units in NetBrain. So as we see, parser files are the basis for our data view templates, our QApps, and our network intents. So let's go ahead and learn how to build